Okay, this is Unit 8, Segment 3, Taxonomy and Classification. Okay, question to start off with. You don't have to write this down. Do you ever classify anything? In other words, do you ever organize anything, like in your room or in your locker or in your car? CDs, DVDs, you don't have to write this down, you guys. Pantry, food, cupboards, dishes, laundry. I know you all are sorting your laundry. Drawers, books, computer folders, anything that you would then organize. You are classifying them according to whatever meets that criteria, and then you're placing them where they should go. But why do you do this? Again, don't write this down, just think about it. Why do you do this? To make your life easier, to allow you to find things faster, to save yourself some time, and allow others to find things a little faster too that might be working with you. So when you start to look at life, and you start to look at why, what's going on, what makes these things unique, as scientists did back in the day before we really knew what to call things, they would start to look at characteristics about the life and place them into categories. So what is this? What was the slide I just showed you? What is this? It's a barking deer. Did you ever see that? So why classify in biology? It makes sense of the biosphere, show evolutionary links, predicting characteristics shared by members of the group, and it just makes life easier overall. So that's why we are classifying, my friends. Here we go. Classification systems are used by biologists to study the diversity of life, to name organisms, as simple as naming them, and to group them into a logical manner. You can see all these beautiful
animals.
These beautiful examples, that's what the word is, of groupings. So we have, and you can go very, very broad, where it's going to incorporate a lot of different organisms, all the way down to the very specific, where you get down to just one. Early on, scientists would classify them by their general appearance. Oops, that was a mistake. Later on, we now use DNA and RNA sequences, similar things that we use for the evidence of evolution. So proteins, embryonic development, similarities, things like that. Taxonomy, that word, means the science of naming and classifying organisms. That is the definition. Taxonomy. Go ahead and say it out loud. Taxonomy. Assign each organism a universally accepted name. So if you're in France, French scientists are going to be using the same name for a creature as American scientists. It keeps that universal. Carolus Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy, developed a hierarchical system of classifying organisms. He was the first. In his system, there were 7 levels. We still use this system, by the way. Each level is called a taxon. That's a fun word. Taxon, level. Largest taxon is kingdom. The smallest is the species. Okay, so the most specific, the top of the pyramid is your species. Most broad at the bottom is the kingdom. You need to know this, okay? So I learned King Philip can order fried green spinach. That's the sentence I learned in 8th grade, and I still remember it. So if you want to set up a little sentence, a little mnemonic device, you can using the first letter, but you do have to know these in order. And they go from broadest to most specific. Species almost looks like specific, doesn't it? It does a little bit, so it's most specific. So when you start to look at how are these organisms similar, they all have ears, they all have 2 eyes on the front of their face, they all have fur. All these things can come into play when we start to throw them into categories. Linnaeus also came up with the binomial nomenclature. Say that twice. Binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. Bi means 2. Nomial means 2 names. And nomenclature is part of that word too. Binomial nomenclature is a 2-word scientific name for creatures. 2-name system. Developed by Linnaeus. It's universally accepted. It's used worldwide. When I went down to Costa Rica, the guides and the scientists were all calling these animals their scientific name, literally, the two-word scientific name they were using. Here we just use bear. We just say bear, you know, or dog, or horse. But there they actually do use the scientific name, and I was impressed by that. So that is called the scientific name. Binomial nomenclature is a two-name system. But what is the scientific name? How is it? Where does it come from? How do we know what to write down for the scientific name? The scientific name takes the two most specific taxon from the hierarchy system. So remember, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Genus, species is the most specific, so that's what we use for the scientific name, and it is in Latin most often. The format to type it, you always italicize it. So when you're reading research or any articles about organisms where the scientific name is actually being used, you will see it italicized. If you are handwriting it, and you guys are going to be handwriting with your research, you're going to underline it. So the first letter of the genus name is always capitalized, and the species never is. So here's a bunch of examples. Because this is typed, it's italicized. You are handwriting it though, so what should you do? Answer is, you should underline them. So Homo sapiens, humans, that's us. Canis familiaris, Felis domesticus, Acer rubrum, Acer saccharum. I'm certain I'm brutally massacring the pronunciations of these Latin words, but they are beautiful. And this is the genus, and this is the species. Genus is always capitalized. Species never is. You will be marked down if you do that, if you don't follow these rules, friends. So if you're handwriting it, make sure that you underline it. Okay, the examples here, we have human and we have a garden pea, funsies. Here are the taxa all in order from most general to most specific. And so humans are part of the Animalia kingdom, Chordata phylum, Mammalia class, Primate order, Homidae family, Homo genus, Sapiens species. Plants, you can see here, all the way down to the species. But what are their scientific names? You can see it. Which ones do we use? Which ones do we use? If you said genus, species, ding, 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 you are right. So we are looking at Homo sapien, Pisum sativum. And sometimes you'll see the genus capitalized and just the first letter. But I don't want you guys to get in the practice of doing it. I just want to show you this because sometimes in some research you might see that. All right, so these are italicized because they're typed, but what should yours be? Underlined. All right, there are 6 major kingdoms. Archaebacteria, formerly called Monera. There's Eubacteria, formerly called Monera. The bacteria are sometimes grouped together. Sometimes you'll see it just one kingdom, prokaryote. There's Protista, fungi, plantae, and Animalia. And this is kind of a schematic to show you too. You don't have to write anything down from the slide because you are going to fill out a chart. And the next slide is going to show you how to do that. I think in the skeleton I've given you this chart. But if not, if you're working off of the skeleton, you'll need to recreate this. And the 6 major kingdoms are across the top. We're going to find out, tell me about, so basically everything that's in the Archaebacteria kingdom is going to have the same characteristics as each other. The organisms in Eubacteria are going to match the same characteristics that they have, okay? And then Protista and so on. So it allows us to say, okay, I found this unknown species. Where do I put it? Where does it belong? It's like, how do I file this CD? How do I hang this sweater? Which spot in my closet am I going to put it? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out what are the characteristics of these kingdoms in order to classify things into those kingdoms. All right, so here we go. Bam! What characteristics would an organism need to be in the kingdom Archaebacteria? They must be prokaryotic, which means they lack nucleus and organelles. They are unicellular, one cell. They're autotrophic or they can be heterotrophic. They do absorb food and they do have cell walls. They also can tolerate very extreme conditions, and this is important. These are the guys that are going to be in the, over by the hot springs, like the geysers, and very, very hot, rich minerals. Nothing can survive there, but these guys can. Okay? Here's an example of one. All right, now what about the kingdom Eubacteria? That's going to be prokaryotic, unicellular, so single-celled, autotrophic, or they can be heterotrophic. They absorb their food, and they do have cell walls, and here comes one creeping in. Lots of bacteria. Lots of bacteria. This is going to be the bacteria that's going to be in your gut, on your skin, the fun stuff that makes you sick. Okay, what about kingdom Protista? They're eukaryotic, so no longer are we looking at prokaryotic anymore. Eukaryotic means they have the membrane-bound organelles, and they have a nucleus. Most of these are going to be unicellular, and these are going to be the little things that are floating around in the fresh water or the ocean too, and they photosynthesize, or they can absorb or ingest outside materials. They're heterotrophic and they're autotrophic. Protozoa, amoeba, paramecium, all these that are floating in are going to be examples. What characteristics would an organism need to be in the kingdom fungi? A really fun guy. Eukaryotic, multicellular now, no more single cellular business. Heterotrophic, it needs to go and take in energy from an outside source, not to make it itself. It has cell walls made of chitin, and it absorbs, so we're looking at like mushrooms and molds. Here they come. Nice. Morels are out right now. All right, what about kingdom Plantae? It's eukaryotic, multicellular, autotrophic. They have cell walls made of cellulose. They go through photosynthesis. Here they are. Bam, there it is. Plants. I love them. Kingdom Animalia, eukaryotic, means it has a nucleus and organelles, like we've said before. They are multicellular. They are heterotrophic. They do ingest their food. They have to consume. We're looking at all kinds of life here. There it is. And that is it. Game over.